Whatever.
I don't know. I don't know. I find it to be a little better just to start recording than shoot off fireworks.
No, yeah. Well, thanks for asking. Let me think. Well, you know, I'm always listening to Death Grips, my boys, because they put out a 2018 release that was interesting. I didn't really like it that much at first because they were like intentionally doing like a weird lo-fi prog rock kind of thing, but really interesting stuff. It grew on me over time. There's a lot of stuff out, a lot of good stuff out though. There's this group, Caro Bonito, goes by KKB for short. That's like an excellent. They started off like they were kind of like a novelty group at first. They have like this, like I want to say this inspiration from almost that like, this is like stretching it, but like that K-pop type of thing, you know?
Where like I'm not sure I know what that means. K-pop.
Well, like the lead singer is Asian, and there's like a sort of fusion of like this. They're like super. There's a really cool kind of like hyper positive thing going on that they have, but it's not like overdoing it. But there's a cutesy thing there. There's like a Japanese. I think that maybe that's probably where she's from. I wish I knew more about the group, but it's like two guys and the girl, and they're pretty young, and they make this. So they started off pretty like electronic, you know, like but they on this third album they just put out, they like really came into their own on some like there's like shoegazy elements and like dream pop, and like it really, they've like blown up into something that you probably appreciate, because I know you like some stuff like that. Like Stereolab is great.
Right.
I know you like Stereolab.
I
always remember being surprised when for some reason, even though that's like totally your era, I was like, you know Stereolab?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That was good. Actually, speaking of which, does this K-pop, is it KKB?
Oh, I should have elaborated.
No, it's okay. I don't know much, but like Cornelius, is that?
Oh man, well that's like like J-pop, Japanese, Korean, the difference there or whatever, right? But yeah, it actually is cut from that cloth. It would be more like J-pop. I need to correct myself, because the K-pop thing is much more. That's like a really like they're like hyper pop, but the J-pop stuff is much more like experimental, you know. So like Cornelius is definitely cut from that cloth,
right?
Like of the KKB lineage. There's this older group, Sweet Trip, that their new stuff reminds me of a lot.
Right.
Sweet Trip is very underrated.
And you just can go to YouTube and just YouTube these names.
Oh,
and
yeah.
just listen to this music, right? Essentially.
Yeah, the beauty of modern streaming, right? Yeah, these are all names like that. It's hard to come. I mean, it's hard to come by names that you can't get, at least on YouTube. I mean, I'm just like Spotify. I'm simple Spotify, like SoundCloud, YouTube, and Bandcamp. Bandcamp is good.
Okay.
Bandcamp is like the organic food source of the internet, because the thing about Bandcamp is it's like very artist friendly, you know.
Okay.
So like if you want to get into that, because it's interesting.
Well, I mean, are you saying that the other ones aren't, or what is that? I mean, we can go into what makes something artist friendly, but maybe you should. Well, let's do that first, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting topic. I mean, it's kind of just my opinion that with the SoundCloud thing, I mean, it's sort of general consensus too, but I don't want to just bolster my opinion by saying that. But like the SoundCloud market or whatever is like very oversaturated. Like it's reached its peak. Like I remember when in around like 2010, like 11 or so, like when I was like in high school, like SoundCloud was just like, oh, that's just where you go. That's like the new up and coming place. You just upload your music. Like if you're an indie, you're just homemade music. Just like throw it up there. And you can still do that. Like I don't want to be too negative about it, but they've upped their model, and it's to be expected, right? But it's like I've seen the evolution. You know, they've incorporated commercials. They have like a front page. Like there's a SoundCloud rap is practically a genre now because
Really?
yeah, because it's very like accessible. You know, I mean, so there's a strange thing that I've seen where it's not you kind of have to dig a little deeper on SoundCloud, but on Bandcamp, they've got this like. If you're into that kind of more like curated thing, like I always notice like their homepage, excellent recommendations, like, and it's always like from all over the world, you know, and they're the way that they're more artist friendly in my opinion too
is Bandcamp like, free? Like you can just go to Bandcamp as a consumer and just listen to it. Okay. Yeah, the sort of like catch, if you want to, or the caveat is that it is kind of expected that like you should purchase things, you know, like I mean the idea is like, hey, it's on here for free for you to check out. Some artists don't put their stuff just to check out, like right. You know, but the thing is like you check it out, but there's also it's like here, buy this or a physical copy, so it links to like okay, sure,
so it is
like
its own
like CD Baby.
Yeah, I don't know if I've actually heard that. I'm thinking of like, are you talking about?
No, it was just a website. It probably still exists. It was just really big into CDs and supporting artists, and it was always linked to the buying part of it, which is important. Right, it's important for artists. So
well, it's like a, you know, you probably remember. I don't know if you remember like when Radiohead did their like In Rainbows kind of pay what you want thing back in the day.
Kind of actually. I think I do remember that.
That was cool because I mean I've always loved those guys. Like I got into them when I was a teenager. They're like they're one of those bands where it's like everyone loves Radiohead, or at least like it's kind of cool. They're a cool band, you know. But the thing is like if you look back in 2007, they had a Pay What You Want album. You know, I mean you could pay $0 if you wanted. I mean, I remember, like, I just got a physical copy because I didn't even, like, know how to do that, I don't think, at the time or something. I was just like, I'll just get the CD because I'd just gotten into them and, you know, support the artist anyway. So, so anyway, I mean, it sort of follows, not that they invented the model, but, like, I usually refer back to that when I think of, like, Bandcamp because, like, it's much truer to that model of, like, of that sort of artist friendly, like you start an artist page and it's very like it's linked to your like you could get physical copies, but you see it how it's like a lot more about like the occasional cassette, for example, you know, like there is it's changing because of course streaming is like the big thing and people are going to go to Bandcamp for streaming too, but they're at least trying to nudge you in the direction, you know what I mean, of like supporting the artist. And they have like supporters on the
like you know you get like a shout out.
Yeah, like on the album page, for example, you're like thinking of a certain album, you'll get like 2 comments from like contributors or like whatever who are like, this album is like awesome.
Are people making their way with Bandcamp, or is it just like a portion of what they do, would you say?
I think like Bandcamp was a bigger name, honestly, I think, in around when SoundCloud blew up. But SoundCloud has remained because it's so much more kind of streamlined. Like you get like a feed, right, of just like your liked tracks or who you follow. So it's much more like social media-esque. Like you can repost songs, you know, and stuff like that. So it's very friendly to that like scrolling down method. But with Bandcamp, it's much more like you're probably already seeking out the artist. So okay, so back in the day, back in the day, I would say absolutely. But now you're starting to see more. It's like because you used to hear that like, oh yeah, Bandcamp artists, but you don't hear that now. You hear SoundCloud rappers or artists, and I only say rappers because that's more of like a meme. Because like if you hear those like generic like trap beats and like someone just going yeah like that's kind of like SoundCloud rap because because it's not to, you know, diss any SoundCloud rappers, but because kind of quote unquote anyone can do it, you know,
right?
So that's the idea.
You know what, it's funny that you say that because I know that you're right. You're like you can totally find, like if I'm looking for music for like a video I'm working on, and I'm like, I would like something that sounded kind of with some nice beats.
Right.
It's pretty
beats
easy.
Are good for that too.
It's pretty easy to pick something, you know, like with a Creative Commons license, but off off of SoundCloud.
That is a good point. They were always good with that too. When you got instrumentals, like I would always go there, and I still do, to get good instrumentals. So I will give it to SoundCloud on that note. But it's just like I've noticed they have SoundCloud Go now, which is like a plus feature, right? Where you're gonna pay like $10 a month, and then you go on some artist profiles where like they've got their content up, but you got to have a Go profile to even listen. You can listen to 30 seconds. So they've had to like diverge with the market at large. So I guess I'm just kind of like lamenting older days, but it's still the same platform essentially.
Right.
They've even, I think, they had like financial trouble, and it was like Chance the Rapper. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but supposedly, I don't know what the deal is with this, but the story was like that SoundCloud was legitimately going under. And Chance the Rapper, as someone who like came up on a free mixtape and all this stuff, like supporter of that kind of free upload culture. Apparently, he like donated some money or something and to like going? Actually keep it going. Wow. So I will say, I mean, the model itself, I mean, the business itself, I should say, like they may well be struggling. I'm just saying that the model has definitely changed. Like, you know.
Well, so you're saying like so YouTube essentially being really taking do artists capitalize on YouTube, or does they just get taken advantage of, or is there somewhere it's probably somewhere in between, but you know, for people that you follow, what's your experience, what's your sense of it?
I mean, I don't know if you've seen this too, but like it seems that YouTube is kind of like, if you want to just go to kind of public domain, like look anything up, like go to YouTube, right? And it is user oriented, but I've noticed that it's mostly about the content itself. You know, like you might appreciate a user, for example, for uploading like a 1996 performance from some band, right? Like that's cool, right? But that's like just one video. It's not so catered anymore to outside of like YouTube stars, right? Like it's not I don't think it's as sustainable. Like I don't know if you've noticed this, but people sort of I think they might scoff a little bit at like the YouTube celebrity. I mean, just the way they would about any celebrity, but there's something about when you add YouTube to it, you know, you get this extra sense of like looking down on it. I don't think that's necessarily like true, right? But I think it still exists. We're still like working through the kinks of, you know, the stigma, honestly, of like, oh, it's all social media, right? Like, not necessarily. I mean, it's social in the sense people need to learn what social media means. What it actually means.
Well, what do you mean? What don't people get about that?
Right, like that. Oh well, geez, that's when I start getting like ridiculous. But okay, so my All right. Well, I don't know if you like agree, but I feel like people don't even realize that it's about dialogues, and it's like they're giving monologues, right? But almost like not seeing the underlying actual dialogue going on, like, you know. And I'm still sort of like figuring out how that all works, but it all seems very like psychological. Like, but man, what was the original like question? Sorry, I was sort of.
I was just talking about artists. The way YouTube treats artists, music artists. And, like, I guess we were talking music in particular, but yeah. Yeah,
well, just talking about like streaming, like, because I'm going on a tangent thinking about streaming in general, you know. But like, just the culture, the way it's going, I think YouTube actually is a good platform, really, to get started. I've been into. I mean, I actually finally just downloaded Vimeo, and you actually kind of put me onto that. Because it's like, because now we're starting to get to that point with video, right? Because we were just talking about audio, and it's cool, we can talk about whatever, but like video, YouTube, Vimeo is almost becoming the more organic, like the Bandcamp of music is what I'm thinking, right?
Well, that was...
of video, sorry.
Something that I took away, that film festivals and filmmakers really use Vimeo. That's you know, a password protected Vimeo video is essentially what you use to get into film festivals.
Yeah,
that's where you put your screener. So and it's designed for that. It's really
Yeah,
designed
exactly.
for filmmakers, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
really the only alternative to YouTube that's
Yeah, yeah.
at any sort of level
Yeah, that's
of
funny.
prominence, unless you're gonna do some
Yeah.
sort of self-hosting. And the Internet Archive is not really for this. That's
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking about social. You're talking about
Oh,
we're
that's
talking
what I
about
was getting all
social
hung up on.
media,
Yeah,
right?
social media. Oh, what actually social media means. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Right. Because, social social media. It's like you're interacting with people using a medium
Mm-hmm.
is not actually, it doesn't necessarily have to be about like just like entertainment or it's supposed to be like conversations, right? So, like that's the idea. I mean, I like to promote that idea because that's the unfortunate thing. Like I notice because we were just talking a little about the social, like when you talk about Facebook and Twitter and things like that,
Yep.
like, and of course that's what winds up. It's like, oh, that's what social media is, like, right? Of course, like because it is, but it's also when you think of what the actual, etymology, the root of what social media actually is. It's like no, it goes way beyond just like a feed of content,
Mm-hmm.
like that's what unfortunately like so back to the sort of like platforms thing when it comes to video, yeah, Vimeo I think is almost like the Bandcamp of video because they're much more it is much more honed in on the actual craft. So I mean I kind of wish there were more audio and video sites like independent entities that didn't have to struggle like to get out there because you've only got a handful of services, we can name off, right? When we talk about this
Right.
stuff.
I mean, do you go to anybody's like website anymore?
Oh, yeah, it's like, don't even get me started on blogs, like how they died. Blogs died,
Right.
you know? It used to be, I was on the end of that, I had like just missed it, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like. But you're right, I mean, I think it's not to be negative, but I think it is a dwindling resource. But there are some few. It really is good to see like some stuff. For example, even on just your basic like Twitter or something, there are websites that are still kicking that
Mm-hmm.
cover just it's journalism. Like for music and video journalism. Uh, actual pieces of writing uh, on works that people create, which is like
Like
really good to
review
see.
sites.
Yeah, I like that sort of blend. That there's a good blend I've noticed of some blogs lately that do this sort of. They're not so like okay. You think of like the needle drop, right? Something like someone like
I
him.
mean, I wasn't thinking about that, but now that you bring it up, I suppose that's a good example, right?
Yeah, it's not even. I was sort of just thinking of the needle drop. Oh, now I totally just lost my train of thought. Why did I think of him? Why did I think of that man? Anthony
Um,
Fantano.
well, we were talking about
Sorry.
independent.
Gonna
We
help
were
me.
talking about websites, right? We were going into the way
Yeah.
that
Oh, blogs.
music
Sorry.
blogs,
Yeah.
music blogs,
Yeah, because
which
that's
are
the thing.
which are useful, right?
Yeah, he is like he really started off with humble roots. I remember when that dude crazy. I mean, I knew about him like a little after, but he started in like '09, so it's been 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's
Wow.
wild to think about. But anyway, just like feeling old aside, he was a blog, and he still is like in that sort of vein, but like it's gotten so condensed to where when you talk about bloggers, you're talking about reviewers, and what I'm getting at is I like the blend. Like I like what Fantano. I've always thought he was a good dude, and I liked what he was going for. I liked that he spread good music, right? But the reviewing aspect, right? And I'm not trying to be like, oh, we shouldn't review things because it's negative, but I like the blend of sort of like you don't have to slap a score on it. You don't have to like just talk about it, and if you don't like it, we can glean that from it. It doesn't have to be this so arbitrary. Like I've noticed this shift in like the needle drop is one of the only bloggers really that I've ever seen that's first of all gotten so huge, and then second of all scores art objectively. So
Mm-hmm.
other than Pitchfork, right? But
Right.
they're not a blog. Let's
Well,
you know.
I mean, what are they? They're a
Not
company
anymore.
at this point, or
They did, another interesting example of like independent media. They started off, this guy like Ryan Schreiber, like started the thing, and, and they actually used to be a funny company because they would like, put out like cutthroat reviews sometimes, and like and they don't really do that anymore. I mean, they work with like Condé Nast, like a publishing company.
right? So that's a big, huge.
Yeah. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking
magazine.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
conglomerate.
Vanity Fair and everything. So so they've become a more sleek, like,
Right.
their layout is very sleek now. It's not, it did used to be very blog like though. They were very much in the vein of like blog culture, which was cool. It's again not to just keep, I feel like this whole thing's turning into me pining for like the older days of the internet, but
Well,
I mean,
what
do
does
you
that? What
think?
does that even mean to you? What does that? What do
The
you
old
say?
days of, yeah, it's
What
funny,
does that
right?
mean?
Because we talk about the old days, but then you see my generation talks about the old days of the internet. What does that mean?
Right.
Like, I've seen people coin it before, like people that, like artists that were in that bloggy kind of scene. Like this one guy in particular, I remember like referencing like the Wild West of the internet time.
Yeah.
Like,
What?
and it seemed to be that was probably the first decade of the millennium. It was so like right around 2010. I think we started to really see the like tip over into like, all right, this is like massive, and around, and I think once we got to like, I'm just like being arbitrary, but like probably 2015.
Speak from your own experiences. Like, would you say that there were things that you would visit pre 2010 that really were okay? These are great. Then they're not around anymore.
Well, I guess what I mean to say is because it's arbitrary for me because like I was a little late because I'm kind of like younger, and some people probably in their like 30s or whatever would be like, oh yeah, the good days of Pitchfork or whatever, and I'm over here basically I started seeing that stuff in like 2011 or 12, like right when the crest had hit the shore, like with that bloggy vibe of like we can just share music. Pitchfork used to share links for music to just download for free. It was like, check out this new artist, download it. I got so many downloads from just free.
Just right from Pitchfork.
Yeah, just for free. And you, so what I'm trying to say is like you could see, I think, kind of a seismic shift really, and like I want to say like the early 2010s, but it was like fully developed probably in like 2015 or something. Like the middle of the decade, it was like, all right, everything is like streamlined now. But it is kind of hard for me to like put my finger on what that means, like why it's bad. It's not bad that what do you think? I want to hear. I'm just ranting. So.
That's okay. That's okay. No, I'm wondering. By bad, do you mean it doesn't feel good?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like maybe it's not bad, but it just doesn't feel good.
It's different.
It's different. All right. And now you're like the old man, like, I don't like the chain. I don't like just get off my internet front lawn.
Yeah, it's like, right, literally this whole thing of like, so the more interesting topic, I think, the more like broad topic is like
sure.
An artist sharing their stuff, right? Like, do we actually have the right to just listen for free? Like, is it good actually that it's more streamlined now? Because what I'm saying is, by streamlined, basically what I mean is you can't really get away with anything anymore. You can't get away with just free downloads, and I mean, unless the artist directly is like, here, free mixtape or whatever. But even that culture is like, what's the last free mixtape you downloaded? I haven't downloaded a free mixtape in like 3 years.
Well, it was probably Into the Wild, of course, like LP, Killer Mike.
Oh, nice.
Trackstar, the DJ, but that was probably 2012, maybe?
Right, and like
Something
they were
like
on
that.
Yeah, they were on that for sure. Like, part of that wave. I mean, hip hop was so great. It was like during that time too, right? Like, and hip hop was ahead of the curve when it came to like. Because when you had that free mixtape stuff, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But now you've got, like, I remember, maybe this is like analogous somehow, because I remember Drake putting out honestly a collection of songs that at the time I thought was pretty good because it was him. It was like kind of harder sound or whatever. He obviously didn't stick with that, but whatever. Anyway, like it was that If You're Reading This, It's Too Late album, and that must have been like 2013, but it was labeled as a mixtape, right? But it was on streaming services. It was an album, you know.
Right.
But mixtape became basically, this is a collection of songs that I'm not going to associate with the album, but I'm going to say,
funny.
but this is a mixtape because, you know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean.
And it was
'cause
good.
I actually used to get actual mixtapes.
Yeah, of course. And it's like,
That's
so
funny.
would you get like curated, like you mean mixtapes?
There used to be a place across from Tower Records in Boston, like a hip hop store.
Yeah.
It was like on the second floor. I don't remember the name of it, but you'd go and they'd have a bunch of tapes, and you could just buy the tapes.
Actual
You know,
mixtape.
and they would just, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Jeez, yeah.
I mean, I wasn't getting them on the street. I mean, I don't want to like.
True, yeah.
It wasn't like
Getting
that-
handed them.
Yeah, it
physical
wasn't
copies,
like
yeah.
it wasn't that like hardcore, but I was like,
DIY,
you know, I would listen to WERS hip hop, and
Nice.
then from there be like, oh, these are the artists I want to listen to.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that place may have underwritten the show or something, and then you'd go, and then I'd get those mixtapes, and then for me, anyways, it was the names of the artists on those mixtapes. Then, when I had when Napster came around,
Yeah.
then it was like a feeding frenzy
Oh,
of
yeah.
like downloading those artists.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
just
see, that was still the
hundreds and-
Wild West, right? Like
Yeah.
Napster and everything.
Oh, that was
That's like what I'm talking about, you
Right.
know? Like, I mean, that's early, but yeah. But anyway, yeah, so that's funny, right? That was when it was like, it's like, oh, what a gift, you know? Like, because you have all this music, all this media, and then it's like, you wind up with that issue, you know, Metallica with Napster. It's like,
oh, what did that? Yeah, I don't Metallica.
yeah, I can't say I know too much about that case. Can't say I even like know that much about Metallica even or Napster. But I do know the infamous connotation of that they essentially they sued them for copyright or something, and you know, it was like the first major band to have kind of rebelled, what do you call it, financially against a platform, right? So it becomes that they kind of started that conversation, though, I think a little bit, to be fair. And
Right.
You know, it was seen as kind of negative, I think. But you could maybe make the connotation like that I did with, like, say, Radiohead with the Pay What You Want, that Metallica kind of did the opposite. They were kind of like, no, we made this, like, you know, for you to buy in the coarsest terms, you know?
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I guess
Right.
you have to figure out how to make a business out of it.
Yeah, so that's like the worktaround that's very interesting to me.
Right. No, but I know we got a little distracted
Yeah,
there.
so, like-
but what I was trying to get
Yeah.
at was
Mixtape.
from blogs to like
Blogs, yeah.
websites, because like I was just curious if an artist's website means anything to you or to people that consume music. I'm curious
Artist
because
website? Sorry.
yeah, artist website, because that would be the one place that you could kind of like self-host your work.
Yeah.
And not rely on YouTube, not rely on SoundCloud or anything. You could just self-host.
Yeah, right.
But I suppose you sort of like lose all the social benefits of those other platforms.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That's like the trade-off that you wind up having to deal with.
Right.
It would be great if we could start moving towards a blog culture like again. It sounds weird. It would be great if we could like revitalize it in a more modern, way where it's like, yeah, direct them to the Spotify or iTunes link if you have to, right? But you know, maybe don't have free downloads. But I think people are missing that, right? That like kind of those curated like playlists, like those good. Not to echo, I had caught actually a little of the interview you were doing with your cousin, and I had seen you referenced something to do with curation. I think it was like not playlist. It was like radio, right? and
Oh,
you get
right,
that
right.
touch, that like personal touch. It's always, and that's something that's getting a little muddled with, like, everyone can make their own playlists, you know. So, and I get that, like, because I like to make my own, but sometimes it's good. Like, I remember when blogs would put out like the up and coming new music from, or a label, for example. That's a better example. Let's say
Right.
like a really independent, like up and coming independent label, they release a compilation, right? Like online, a free download. Maybe not free, okay, but like 10 songs to sample their label or something. Like that's a great, that's something great, and that creates like its own, not only its own like little collection, but it puts people on to artists, you know, that they wouldn't otherwise hear if they didn't kind of go through that rotation. You know, that's what I love about radio. Like even Sirius Radio is like, who does anyone listen to Sirius anymore? Like XM, the independent one, music, I loved that when I was like a teenager.
Right.
Just like in the car with my parents, I'd be like, they'd let me just put on the XM.
I mean, satellite was
It
a
was so
pretty
good.
big deal when it came out. I
Yeah.
think now now it's, I don't know, does that look all right?
Yeah, like I was just
The
thinking-
satellite, for me, satellite essentially is like what you get when you rent a car.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, nice. Comes
yeah.
with it.
That's about it.
Yeah, that's the quality isn't that great. My dad has mentioned that. He
Like-
always noticed that.
Like the weather, right? Like it's getting
Yeah.
affected by the weather
actually-
and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It literally is, yeah. And so basically the, like, you know, audio fidelity like goes down for just, because I have noticed that too across the board, that you can tell, like, I don't know what it might be, however they're doing it, like the bit rate is like low usually.
Terrible, yeah.
It's usually not very good, but there's still, though, you get that curation of songs, and I almost don't mind, because you know how the radio would sound not always the best, right? If you listen through like a stereo, like, I don't know, there's something to that's like,
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's like, okay, I'll download it later and listen on my headphones, it'll sound great. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
It doesn't matter like in the moment so much. People just really want that, like, microwave quality. I saw someone on Twitter like say something about microwave culture.
Microwave culture?
Yeah, I don't know, something like that. They're like, you know, talking about like they might have been, I don't want to, she might have been throwing shots at Netflix or something. I'm not sure.
Oh,
I'm not sure who they were throwing shots at.
well, I don't know.
Everyone's throwing
I
shots
suppose
everywhere.
Netflix is big enough that people can throw shots at them now.
Netflix is like killing cinema.
Well, I don't know. That's a good
but it
discussion
is-
topic.
Yeah.
I
I
mean-
mean, it's very different from the music topic. But we talk about platforms. I mean, it is an interesting topic. I mean, you probably know more about the platforms, though, than I do, as far as
like Netflix?
technically speaking. Because, yeah, because I see what you mean. It's like there are good elements, obviously, to it. It's like a lot of content, for sure, right?
You
But-
mean on Netflix?
Yeah. And even if you just want to generalize it for the sake of this conversation or whatever, right? It's like such big collections, but they're not really, there's no like method to it, and you kind of just wind up watching reruns or something, you know?
Well, I'm going to bring up the same point that I made with my cousin before, and that he made, was that you kind of want, you like Netflix, but you kind of want somebody to do it for you.
Yeah,
Like-
that's the strange thing about it.
Right.
I
You're
am
like-
interested in that topic, though, like very much, because it's
Right.
right. It's very interesting.
Right, you're sort of like, how about you take these 7 shows that I really like and just put them together in like a linear program and put them into 3 channels, and then when I get home from work, I can just turn on one of the channels
Yeah.
and whatever. I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
But that the video content on new like Netflix original programming is just so high that it demands your attention.
yeah.
Like you almost can't have it in the background because it's
Yeah, the Netflix original type stuff. You
Yeah,
mean? Like,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
they're very
it's
highly produced.
It's
yeah.
fantastic, but
Some good, very good stuff too. Yeah.
yeah, but you just can't have it in the background. You have to
Yeah.
you have to give it your
Yeah.
you have to give it your all to
Right. Right. Well, that's their kind of like unique model. I think that but maybe that people aren't realizing yet is that they're clearly making the shift towards original content. You know. I mean, and they have been for a while. and like I'd seen some article like a while ago. Is like they outright said, you know, that they're like increasing their focus on original content, like, so, you know, Netflix original. I mean, you've seen Amazon doing that now too.
Mm-hmm.
What a time to be alive, because it's like they're becoming streaming platforms, you know. Like it's like now it's like, okay, so we're gonna adjust to this on-demand thing, but some of it's like really good, you know. So
right.
So it's like, who can say what's bad, like, about, that's what I mean, like back to earlier, my whole like spiel. It's like, I think though, it's just interesting times.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't. I'm just going to bring this up, even though it's probably. But there's a book by a media theorist called Neil Postman that's called "Amusing Ourselves to Death." So it's like we're talking about all this stuff, and it's so awesome, and it's, you know, we can get into it, and entertainment is a great thing. It provides, but like. We almost were like so overboard. Not you and I, but
I know what you
mean.
Yeah. The general
population.
Sure, yeah.
That we can just watch all these things and just shut ourselves kind of off from the rest of the world a little bit.
And that is that's where it gets philosophical.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, entertainment. I mean, and I've been thinking a lot about that kind of stuff lately. But like when I was just saying, actually, to relate it just like to me, I guess, like I was just getting back more into movies again lately, and even knowing about, like, say, movie magic, right? It's like, you know about the process behind it, and you know, like, the change.
I went off on that tangent there. Okay.
Oh no, it's cool. You totally no.
Okay.
I just was thinking of I think it related to what you'd said. I mean, it was something to do with like I was sort of thinking movie magic, like, once you know the process or whatever, that it doesn't matter so much, like, you can still enjoy it, you know? Like, like, I don't know where I got, maybe this is just me, right? But I had gotten this, like, idea that it's like, maybe it has to do with that whole, like, it has to be difficult or something, you know, for it to be worthwhile or something.
Right.
But like the movie, when it comes to just personally though, like I feel like I had sort of fallen off with movies, or like watching a lot of stuff, because almost like analysis paralysis, you know. It was like, I was like, oh, I've got this giant list of stuff, and it's like, I mean, you only get so much time to just like sit down and really dedicate like 2 hours to a movie. So it's like the choice becomes very, like, important, I guess you could say. So basically what I'm trying to say though is that now I'm sort of like, I'm like, who cares, you know, and I'll just watch what I want to watch. Right. And it sounds very silly, I guess. It's just like, you see that though now, where it's like every day there's something new to like check out, and old stuff still exists, you know. We're still finding out about old stuff too, that like resurfaces, right? That's like a whole thing.
You didn't watch the Super Bowl or anything, did you?
I actually did.
Did you see that Burger King ad?
Yeah.
And that was, my wife and I were just like, no, is that really?
Yeah, how did you feel about that?
I thought it was fantastic. I loved it.
So you liked it? Okay,
I loved
good.
it. I loved it.
Yeah, okay, because I was like, oh man, they're like stealing the Warhol bit, like. But I was like, dude, I was talking about it with my friend, and he was like, it is their product.
You know, 20 million people that watched that.
Yeah.
Never even know who Andy Warhol was.
I know. Honestly, I will give them props for that, because like I feel like, because I was watching it with my friends, and like, the actual conversation that went down was, well, I laughed and was like, because I had seen it like before, and you know, thought it was funny and everything. Like, you know, that dude is just like the OG like art prankster, you know.
Right.
And so I was just like, had a mixed reaction, I guess, when I saw it being used for a Burger King commercial.
Right.
But what I like though is that I was the only one, not to be like a hipster about it, but it was like my friends didn't know, so like what that was. Like they were like, what? So I mean, so I guess it does kind of have the intended effect, right? And then I mentioned it. I was saying, because I was just, being a hipster about it. And then my friend was just like, I mean, it is their product. And I was like, that is very true. He's blatantly using Burger King for their, for this thing. It's like, why not have it resurface? And so it winds up being this thing where that's very interesting because it winds up being good for Burger King and good for Andy Warhol's like memory, really. Because
it's the talk of the town.
Yeah, really, are people like talking about it? Because this is just the day after the Super Bowl.
I don't know. I just thought it was great. I don't know.
Yeah, that one stood out.
I just thought it was.
I stood out.
Now that I think about it, and I'm just, you're talking about people discovering old things,
right? Yeah,
and I didn't know. And it wasn't even a commercial, right? It was a film.
Yeah, I know the original bit. Like I was watching that recently, just because like going through like Warhol stuff, you know, and like it really was a trip to like see that on like during the Super Bowl. So that's pretty good. Yeah. I gotta give him, and it was a nice minimalist thing. It wasn't like Burger King. Right. It was just like a. Right, so I do kind of like that minimalist kind of the throwback. Right, so we're talking about like resurfacing like old things. Yeah, like that's good. That's good in its own way. Like, I like. Well,
I mean, I think Andy would approve, right?
Yeah. He will see. Yeah, exactly, because he had an interesting take on like commercialism, like obviously. So I mean, if you think about like obviously what he was doing with like the Campbell's soup and everything. Man, yeah, Warhol is like hilarious to me because I mean, okay, so did you ever see Exit Through the Gift Shop?
I did, yeah.
No, it's like you think I need to learn more about Warhol, okay? But sometimes I feel like that guy, like the dude in the Banksy movie, who's Terry Guetta or something.
Okay.
Where, he winds up doing the whole thing where he just, like, screen prints people's faces and, like, messes them up or something. And it winds up being this, like, mechanized process or whatever. So you, like, see, like, that whole movie, I almost feel like is, like, an indirect, like, shot of Warhol or something. Because he did literally have the factory. But I got to thank him for giving us the Velvet Underground because he produced their debut LP. And that, to me, is, like, why I like Warhol.
Okay. Well, coming at it from audio, if we're going to circle back.
Yeah.
We wrap it up with audio.
Yeah, seriously. So we want to bring it back. Because it's like no disrespect to Warhol. I just feel like he was like a fashion guy, almost. You know what I mean? And he knew what was... Honestly, I think he knew the future. And he knew what was like... And he was just kind of playing into it in the 60s. So... I give him props for being original for the time. But, yeah, it's like, man, you can't help but lump it in with everything now because you think, he was just doing the Campbell's thing as, like, a laugh, right? But now that's, like, our reality, It's like now Campbell's is probably going to do, like, a pop art, like,
type thing,
installation.
Yeah, I know those. That's
I know you're saying like you like the Warhol commercial though.
Right.
I don't mean to be like lame about it.
Oh no.
Because it was a good, interesting like usage of it. I mean,
certainly nobody else went there.
No.
For the Super Bowl.
No. Oh my God. Yeah. If you want to talk about seriously, yeah, it stuck out for sure because it was like a moment of. It's just him eating like for a second, and even that is probably enough to get people like what during the Super Bowl is like high intensity. You know what I mean, like
right, and it's so plain Jane on the screen, just and the image you can tell is like that film, sort of like 80s film look to it.
I know, and I actually do love that.
Yeah,
but I think right, yeah. So I'm just like I always loved Warhol for bringing the Velvet Underground to light because he helped with the. I mean, so he produced their first album. I don't know what he did, but he somehow he's credited as producer. I don't know what he knew about audio, but I guess he produced it, and he brought them to light with like shows, like live shows. They had something called. It's the Exploding Plastic Inevitable.
Okay.
And it was like a live thing where they'd be playing, Lou and the whole gang. And like Warhol put it on, it was like one of those 60s like underground kind of thing. Literally, Velvet Underground. But seriously, back when there's actual underground, like avant-garde was still like was really alive, you know. I'm like, man, but that like gets me going because we start talking about like avant-garde and like corporate stuff blending. I just sound like a hippie. I sound like I'm on Joe Rogan, you know.
All right, well maybe we'll
What
have
about
to
audio
see.
though?
Yeah.
I mean, I love the Velvet Underground. Like, did you ever get into them? I'm just like to talk about music to like
Not really, actually. Never really got into them.
their first couple. Well, they're only like they have 4 albums, and then they had an album that came out that had none of the original members and just this one new guy, Doug Yule, for some reason. But they slowly. Well, that's an interesting thing because they started off because they basically started sounding like radio pop, you know, like but their album Loaded is still really good. Their album right before that dude took over, you know, but their first like 3 albums are just like unbelievable.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like they make such a good trilogy. It's Velvet Underground and Nico, White Light, White Heat, and then just the Velvet Underground. No Nico. No German chanteuse, unfortunately.
I don't know what that means, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, she has a thick German accent, and that was what was so interesting and like peculiar about
I would say to cancer, leave me alone
Sorry.
and never
an
come
ad
back.
before the thing.
Cancer,
Oh my god. That was bad.
Were you gonna put up some
I
Velvet?
was gonna put up some Velvet Underground, try to
Brilliant.
have it go out to Velvet Underground.
But they had an ad before it.
Of course, it's YouTube.
Yeah.
So what can I do?
Well, yeah,
Can't
YouTube.
win.
YouTube, man. They need to start new hosting services.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway from this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, maybe for now we can just kind of go out on a song and just
Look at that.
we can just chill.
So nice. Yeah, this is that good stuff.
Standing on the corner, suitcase in my hand, Jack's in his corset, Jane is in her vest, and me, I'm in a rock and roll band. Huh. Riding a Studs Bearcat Jim. You know, those were different times. All the poets, they studied rules of verse, and those